We're joined by Mike and Stacey of KULT News. Mike and Stacey are First Amendment auditors on YouTube that have grown to nearly 60,000 subscribers and 8.5 million views in 8 short months. They join us to discuss starting and growing their YouTube channel, the challenges and rewards of the First Amendment audit space, and what makes them unique and how they were able to cultivate a positive, engaged community. Join us for this exclusive Advertising Week interview with First Amendment auditors, KULT News.
I'm joined by Mike and Stacey from KULT News here on Advertising Week's YouTube channel. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So typically we like to start these by hearing a little bit about you two and the origin story of the channel. So how did you meet and how did the YouTube channel come to be?
I'm big on history, love history, and I was in Kirtland, Ohio for the first time in my life doing a little history. It was like a live feed on Instagram, covering some of the historical places in Kirtland, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And Stacey was watching. She lived in Ohio and was watching the video, and she introduced herself to me through Instagram. And after a couple of weeks perhaps of chit-chatting, she just came right out and told me she felt like she was my soulmate. I think she actually said, "This may sound crazy, but I feel like you're my soulmate." And I said, "That does sound crazy." Yeah. And I said, the question is, are you my soulmate? And she said, "God, I hope so." And 6-7 months later, I was moving to Ohio. Now, as far as the YouTube channel is concerned, I had been watching First Amendment auditors on YouTube for probably a couple of years, and had been adamantly. Well, I had decided that it was something that I wanted to do. It's something that I would be good at. I've been in politics in the past, involved as far as running for city council and things of that nature. And I used to own a bail bond company. I was intimately familiar with law enforcement and how they operate. Frankly, how much corruption there is in law enforcement, and I felt like it was something that I could do well. And then when Stacey and I got involved, frankly, I very much felt like she would play a fantastic role. All of a sudden, the First Amendment auditing idea really grew, because then I'd have a second camera person. I half-jokingly refer to Stacey as my producer. She often is the one that decides where we're going to go. She usually makes up our itinerary.
Where he stands sometimes.
Yeah. Literally, she'll be. I usually will have an earpiece in, and so I can hear her and talk to her.
Oh, really?
And so oftentimes she'll be like, "I need you to stand 15 feet to your left or to your right or whatever." She often will whisper in my ear and tell me, "You've got somebody that's approaching you from across the street." So she's kind of my eyes and ears out there, and typically she will be anywhere from 20 feet away to 150 feet away across the street watching.
And filming. Usually I'm filming.
Now, I believe that the KULT News channel that we created is one of the fastest growing First Amendment audit channels in YouTube history. I have yet to find another YouTuber that does First Amendment audits that grew as fast as we did in the first 6 months. We picked up 50,000 subscribers in the first 6 months. And there are some First Amendment auditors that have been doing this for years that still don't have 50,000 followers.
It's exhilarating, by the way, to watch that. Have you're just a couple months in to see numbers like that. It's very exhilarating. It's motivating.
Very motivating.
Very motivating.
It's also motivating is being in a town in West Virginia. It's a little itty bitty town. What was that?
It had an unusual name.
Was it Point Pleasant?
It was the one that was by that. I don't know. We can't pronounce that.
I think it was Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
That was the one right by it. Right. Yeah.
Town I'd never been to before. Yeah. Neither one of us had ever been to before, and we didn't have just one. We had two complete strangers come up to us. Like one of them was listening on a scanner, and he said, "I heard on the scanner there was somebody recording the bank, and I figured it had to be KULT News." Another fellow, we were lost looking for a memorial. We pulled into a large parking lot of a very large chemical manufacturing plant, and a security guard walks outside, and I'm like, "I got this. I'll go talk to the guy."
Boy, here we go.
So I get out of the car to go talk to the security guard, and as soon as I got close enough to him, and he immediately recognized me, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's you! It's you!" He was so excited.
Yeah, it's very surreal to have that happen.
It is. It's bizarre. It is.
If
surreal.
it happens with this amount of YouTube, followers, I can only imagine if you have like 2 million or something. But yeah, it's crazy when that happens. Or they'll yell. He'll be out on an audit and someone will drive by and just yell KULT News really loud. That's always, it's encouraging.
Well, it's a testament to all the hard work, right, to get this far. One of the things I like the most about your channel is both of you are at a unique dynamic to the First Amendment audit space, right? Like there's a lot of great content out there, but I don't really know of any couples that are creating a channel together and doing a First Amendment audit that have grown like you. And then Mike, you seem to be quite the history buff. And so when I click on a First Amendment audit, I typically am just expecting conflict and humor, some education, right, of the law enforcement. I like hearing about the history too, right, and where you are and some of the things that you're interested in. So can you talk about when, the idea of the First Amendment audit trend on YouTube and what appealed to you about that, and then how you've been able to put your own spin on it and create something really unique?
My first, tussle, so to speak, with the First Amendment was back in 2004. Without getting too much into politics, I voted for George W. Bush in 2000. In 2004, I felt that he was so in denial of the deaths in the war in Iraq. I was not a fan of the war in Iraq. I felt like Osama bin Laden doesn't live in Iraq. So why are we there? And there was a debate between him and John Kerry, and somebody asked President Bush, what, if anything, you would do different? If you knew then what you know now, what would you do differently? And his response was something to the effect of, I really can't think of anything. And I'm like, there's 1,300 dead Americans in Iraq. There are no weapons of mass destruction. At this point, we knew there were no weapons of mass destruction. And it was very disturbing to me. So I put a sign in my front yard. I was living in Layton, Utah at the time. I put a big sign in my front yard. It was 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall. And all it said was it had the number of Americans killed in Iraq. And I would change the number every single day when new people were killed. And I had a little postage stamp size photograph of every American killed in Iraq. And the city of Layton told me my sign was illegal and I had to take it down. And so at the time, I fought him. I had a very well-known civil rights attorney by the name of Brian Barnard, who's deceased now, but back then Brian Barnard was big time, and he represented me pro bono. He fought the city and won. And not only did the city back down and say, okay, you can have your sign up as long as you want, Brian Barnard actually forced the city of Layton, Utah, to remove numerous laws off of their books that were just blatantly unconstitutional. So I fought City Hall and I won, and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling when you stand up to a bully who happens to be named Uncle Sam, and you win. That was back in 2004, and that's kind of stuck with me over the years. When I moved to Columbus, Ohio, and saw how much corruption there was there. In Columbus, Ohio, there is no problem that the police can't make worse. A good example is a gentleman he called the police and said that his 11-year-old daughter was being groomed by a gentleman online. And this man had convinced his 11-year-old daughter to send some inappropriate photographs of herself to him. He called the police. He wanted the police to investigate this man, and he wanted the police to talk to his daughter and tell her how serious this was. Police showed up at his house, and on the porch, they said to him, "We could charge your daughter with distribution of pornography, child pornography." And he was just...
Can't make it. It was a female police officer.
Female
as well,
police officer.
Which, you know, it shouldn't matter, but it seems to matter that it was female.
It was,
even a female police officer said that.
It was gross. It was gross.
It was really terrible.
And we have seen countless cases in Columbus, Ohio, where the police, not only are they not helpful, they literally make things worse. And so we're happy to be out of Columbus, out of Ohio. And so we decided, you know, we were doing auditing for a while. There's only so much auditing you can do in an area before pretty much everybody knows who you are and what you're doing.
They start to warn everyone that you're going to be, that you're headed there next, or that you were there, and right?
Yeah. Or, you know, we did it for a while where we would get hotel rooms and stay for a couple days or 3 days or something, but that just gets very back and forth, a lot of time just spending back and forth driving around. So the RV is a natural thing. With this business,
the RV was definitely a natural progression. And also one of our favorite First Amendment auditors is a fellow by the name of Amagansett Press, Jason Gutterman. Him and his son, his son's channel is Watching the Watchmen. They're in an RV and they travel around the country, and they've been doing it for years, and we really like them. Another one does a lot of traveling, Long Island Audit. He seems to be traveling a lot. And so we felt like in order to really make it successful and do it long term, we really felt like we needed to hit the road and see America. So we're planning on doing it. This is our first week in the RV, and we plan on traveling America for the next 5 years in an RV.
Very exciting. And so what made you decide where to start the RV journey?
The 333 rule is the first thing that we did. It's something like what you don't check in after 3 p.m. Don't drive more than 300 miles. And I forget the other one. There's something. But I said, what's 300 miles from Columbus or so? And it's like, boom, it's Mayberry. That's like perfect.
And let's face it, Mayberry, Mount Airy, North Carolina is about as far opposite of Columbus, Ohio as you can get. You got Columbus, Ohio, nothing but political corruption. You got police corruption. The town is filthy. There's garbage everywhere.
Yeah, it's outgrown itself.
And then you come to Mount Airy, North Carolina, and it really, I mean, it's Mayberry.
It's really Mayberry.
We have encountered nothing but friendly people here. You know, we've done a little auditing here, and let me tell you, it's hard to do auditing in Mount Airy, North Carolina, because you know everybody's just so darn friendly.
They're very friendly. Yeah. They seem to know the law. You know, they don't want to trample on your rights. So I mean, that's a good thing. You know, it's good to find a town like that.
Just today, we had a gal come out of a bank, and one of the first things she said, she asked what we were doing. She said, "Can I help you? You know, what are you doing?" And she said, and she emphasized the fact that, you know, you're totally legal to do this. You are within your rights to do this. You know, I was just curious what's going on. And so that's what we love to hear. Contrary to popular belief, we don't want conflict and animosity with people. We want nothing more than everywhere we go for people to immediately recognize and respect our right to take photos and videos in public and publicly accessible places.
Let's talk a little about some of the inflection points early on. I mean, was it as simple as you put a video out and you got thousands of views and started building an audience, or were there specific pops where, whether it be a piece of content or something being shared that you remember?
Yeah, I think one thing that made us stand out at the very beginning, there's a couple of things. Number one, we almost always try to order police body cam footage and 911 calls, and we try to incorporate those into the actual video in real time. So if somebody comes out of a bank or something or other and they're talking to me and they're upset and they go back inside, half the time you can see them get on their phone. They're literally making a phone call. I've actually had some videos where we'll get the 911 call and I'll literally sync it with their lips moving.
And when they call the police, we just refer to that as cameras going inside where we can't go.
They're extra cameramen.
they're cameramen
Yeah.
and we can get their footage.
And as long
So
as
thank
there's
you, right?
as long as that state has certain rules about Freedom of Information Act, then
Right.
so every state is a little different when it comes to that. Is that
Every-
right?
Like
Yeah,
Kentucky.
every state's a little different. Every city's a little different. So we've had some cities where we make a request for police body cam footage, and we have that footage in 24 hours.
Wow.
We've had other cities, such as, well, another example,
Columbus.
Columbus, Ohio. They took 3.5 months to send us
What
the
about
footage.
Toledo? That was
Toledo, Ohio is
pretty
another
bad,
one.
yeah.
Toledo, Ohio,
It's a
months,
larger city
months.
too.
Yeah, as you
but
get
yeah,
bigger the
and
city that you go to, the more messy things are. And
Yeah, they can be. Yeah,
They
another
can be
thing that
messy.
makes us stand out, I think, that people really like, that we've kind of, I'll admit, I've kind of gotten away from it, and I need to go back to it, and that's pulling out the microphone. It's the look on people's faces when I pull out a microphone. I say, I'm Mike with KULT News, and I'd like to ask you why you're trying to violate my rights. The look on their faces, oh shit.
I mean, and his mic, the mic's branded with
Yeah.
our logo and everything.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
So let's talk a little about YouTube, like as a platform. There's so much that goes into having a successful YouTube channel. Obviously, it starts with you. It starts with the vision for the channel, being consistent. But talk to us about how, when you started YouTube, how did you learn how to do everything that comes with using YouTube to generate views and revenue, and all of the pieces from titles to tags to thumbnails? How did you learn that, and how has that evolved as you continue to grow?
Yeah, by the seat of our pants,
our
honestly. Well, first of all, I knew, we did hire a professional graphics artist to create our logo. We've got the little KULT News logo. We paid for that because we really wanted to have a professional logo. The thumbnails, I'm self-taught. I found an app online that works great, and I make my own thumbnails. In fact, all of our new videos, I would say over the last few months going forward, at the beginning of every video, not only do we have a thumbnail that shows what the video looks like, but when you click on it, that thumbnail becomes animated, and it's just different. I enjoy it. That's my favorite part. I had a gentleman actually who does thumbnails for multiple YouTube First Amendment auditors. He approached me and said, "Hey, you want me to make your thumbnails?" And I said, "That's actually my favorite part, is the thumbnails."
What
so
he likes to do.
I definitely would not have somebody else do the thumbnails because I enjoy doing that so much. I had another YouTube channel for years that it was not monetized. It was just for fun and education, stuff like that. And so I started that channel back in 2012 and had it for years and years.
So
I've got some experience with that. But
Also,
it's different when it's monetized, though. Very different.
I mean, if you just observe, sort of just go out there and see what the genre that you want to pursue, what others are doing and what seems to be working for them. I mean, you can see things like their thumbnails and how many views they had. You can sort of see patterns in other people's channels. So it doesn't hurt to go out and just kind of see what other people are doing, what's working for them, and go from there and put your own unique thing, on it. But you can see what's going on with other people too. And that.
So what advice do either or both of you have to creators that are just getting started, or people that are thinking about pursuing content creation as a career, as a full-time, a dream to have that be what they do?
Let me just say this. I think number one is a misconception we run into quite a bit from people out there is that it's not a lot of work. It can be a lot of work. I mean, so my advice would be you definitely pick something that you love to do, because you're going to be working at it. It's not just 4 hours and then go play. It's a lot of hours putting the content together and getting things out there. So if you love it, of course, it's not work, the old adage, but definitely something that they would love to do, because it's not easy peasy. You have to put in hours to get it done.
Exactly. Yeah. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's what makes it fun.
I enjoy photography. I enjoy videography. I enjoy interacting with people. And so for me, it's like, how can I chat with people, take pictures and video, see cool things around America. Kind of. I wanted to be a history teacher when I was a kid, and now I kind of am. I mean, I give
You're
little
definitely an
history
educator,
lessons.
right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I give
that's
little
hard.
history lessons to people all over America, and it's not just America. Our the city that watches us the most, next to Columbus, Ohio, is London, England. London, England. We have a huge following in the UK. Huge following. So it's interesting that that we have viewers from all over the world. We have viewers in New Zealand that contact us all the time and write to us. But the UK is definitely,
And Ireland.
it's up there.
UK.
Do they have similar laws there? I'm sure you looked into, hey, do we hop across the pond and do some of this in the UK, or is it not quite the same as the
Now, we haven't dug deep enough into it because that is something we want to do in the future. We want to go to the UK and do some out there. It's my understanding that they do have similar laws when it comes to public photography. But we will definitely know all the ins and outs of that. And that's another thing, is that you need to know the topic that you're covering. So it's not just love the topic, but you need to know it. For example,
know the law.
You need to
do this sort of
you
thing.
need to know the law
for sure.
We've had police officers tell us on multiple occasions, just because we're out on the public sidewalk taking pictures and somebody calls the police on us, they're like, we need your ID. Can I see your ID? And I just tell them, yeah, I'm not going to give you my ID. And they're like, well, I've had officers say point blank, you have to. And I just smile and I say, and yet I'm not. Now what? Now what do you do? They don't know what to do. Because in fact, I had an officer 2 days ago. We were doing an audit, and I said, it's a police officer. I'll bet you 99 out of 100 times when you say to somebody, I need to see your ID, they don't question it. They just give it to you. I said, we are the 1% that know our rights. And I am absolutely confident, because he was adamant that I need to get your name because they called and it's for our report and all that. And I said, I am absolutely certain that your rules do not require you to violate my Fourth Amendment right. So I'm not going to give you my ID unless you suspect me of committing a crime. And I know you don't. So have a good day.
Curious about, now that you're in the RV and the trip has started, and the 5-year trek around the country, talk about your goals. Where do you want to take the channel? Whether it's a year, 3 years, 5 years, where do you see KULT News being, and how do you plan to get there?
I'll tell you, because it is a 5-year mission. We've named our RV the Enterprise. Stacey's not really enthusiastic about that name, but I like to say,
I would go with Betty Lou or something.
Let's get back to the Enterprise. In 5 years, honestly, I would like KULT News to be the #1 First Amendment audit channel on YouTube in 5 years. I would like to have more subscribers than Long Island Audit, than Amagansett Press. That's a pretty lofty goal that we've set. I'm talking about people that have 400, 500,000 subscribers. I would love in 5 years to see us at 6, 7, 800,000 subscribers. I don't know if we would branch out into anything else other than I would love to see us over the years doing less auditing and more history stuff. Just taking people and showing them unique historical or just things of interest. The biggest ball of yarn, the big basket building, whatever. Just
the weird, unusual things out there.
I mean, like, for example, we went to St. Louis, Missouri Summit recently, and we went into the arch. You can do a tour. I'm surprised at how many people didn't know. I didn't know until we were, days before we went there, that you can do a tour and go up into the arch. There's little windows up there.
A tram
that takes you up into the arch.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
I had no idea that it was
a lot
big
of people
enough to do
that. A lot of people don't know that. So there's so many neat historical things that we could show people, and And so in a perfect world, that's what I would love to see. In 5 years, I would love for our channel to be more of a travel and history channel and less of a First Amendment audit channel. And preferably because the word has gotten out in America that it's not against the law to take photos and videos in public and publicly accessible places. I'd love to see that.
So do you have any messages to the KULT supporters and fans that have been along the journey up to this point?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you so much to those people for their support, and not just support in numbers and moral support, financial support too. Some of these guys have sent donations to us. When I got arrested in Indianapolis for taking photos on a public sidewalk, there was an outpouring of financial support saying you need to sue those people. We had dozens and dozens of people call the jail in Indianapolis and say, "You people screwed up. What are you thinking, man?" I have little doubt that the dozens of phone calls that the sheriff's office and the jail received in Indianapolis played a large role in me getting out in only 24 hours. I was in jail for 24 hours for photographing a building that is on the National Registry of Historic Places. It's a bizarro world where up is down, black is white, and legal behavior is somehow criminalized. It's just, and sadly, that's the direction America is going. America is people are getting more and more paranoid. Stacey and I we're old enough to remember the 1970s. And in the 1970s, if you saw somebody that looked like they had professional cameras and they're taking pictures, you'd be jumping around and yelling, "Hi, Mom," behind, in front of the camera. And now you aim a camera and people started acting all paranoid and, you can't photograph me here. And it's like, all right, Madonna, I assure you we can. We can.
It brings out a lot of hostility. We've been flipped off more times than I could count and like cussed at and lewd gestures at us and everything just for being out on the sidewalk with a camera. It's crazy. It's very different now. People are so paranoid now.
I gotta say, it saddens me to say that we know of a couple people have lost their jobs as a direct result of how they behaved when we aimed our camera at them. In fact, the bank in Indianapolis where I was arrested, there was a gentleman that worked in the bank that walked right up to the window and gave me the bird. And
he was yelling at you.
He was yelling at me, and I said, "I can't hear you." So then he flipped me off, and I said, "Oh, I heard that." He lost his job. And so the moral of the story there is, if you're on the clock, whether you work for Uncle Sam or work for your Uncle Bob, if you're on the clock and you're representing that business and somebody aims a camera at you, your best option is probably to wave and smile and say, "Hi, how are you? Can I get you a drink of water?" And we've had a few times where bank employees or somebody will come out and literally, instead of acting like a fool, they come out and like, "Hey, I saw you outside. It seems kind of hot. Would you like a bottle of water?" That makes them look so good.
It's a great commercial for them.
And
it's just a no-brainer.
50 to 150,000 people will see that behavior in a matter of days. And yeah, we've seen it. We've seen both ends of the spectrum. People acting like fools and people making themselves look very, very good for their employer.
No, I think that what you're both doing is incredible. There's a reason that you've built such a loyal audience so quickly. I've never seen anything like it in the First Amendment space or even beyond. Getting to 50,000 subscribers in 6 months is amazing. And I think what's even more exciting is that you guys have now taken this leap and you have the RV, and really like the mission is just beginning. It's almost like those first months or first 6 months were like the pilots, right? Like
very much. Yeah.
Now we can crank them out.
Now we can crank them out. And we really, I'm not gonna say we've burned our bridges per se, but we got out of our lease. We don't have like a house or an apartment that's in Ohio.
Burn the boats,
I mean, this is it. Our home is where we park now. Yep. And right now, our home is Mayberry.
Cue the whistling in the background, right? That's where we play the Andy Griffith. If only well, this has been really amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And I think the KULT viewers are going to love hearing more about you, more about your story, and more about the future. So Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
We appreciate you.